Hello, I'm Bob Johnson.
And I'm Don Welch.
On March 12th, the Tennessee Valley was hit with the most devastating snowstorm in more than 100 years.
Our crew and staff worked around the clock, bringing you the most up-to-date, comprehensive storm watch information.
Many of you, of course, were without electricity for several days, and you missed what was happening right here in our own backyard.
This News Channel 9 presentation is a full account of what transpired during Superstorm 93.
Meet the folks responsible for getting the word out during a time when communication was essential.
What we do to assess whether or not there is a storm watch is we take a look at how serious it is and what the threat is and how big a threat that is. If any of those factors come into play, the News Channel 9 will go on storm watch. On the Monday that I came to work preceding the end of the week, I saw that we may see a significant snow here, so I put it in the 7-day forecast. But I had to be very careful with it at that time because I knew a lot of things could change between now or Monday and the end of the week.
Now, I understand we are going to our Beth Galvin. I think she is still on the side of the ridge. Good morning, Beth.
Good morning, Don and Mike. You look off to the right here, we see a truck with a burgundy front, and it is scooting backwards. This guy has tried again and again to make it up that hill. We talked to him a little bit earlier. He has been here since 4 o'clock in the morning and cannot get up the speed to get off, and I guess he chooses not to try to use the off-ramp because that's not much better with the snow drifts. Behind him, another truck has been stranded for several hours, and there is a guy, if we can pan to the right here a little bit, and I'll try to get out of the way, there is a truck right here that is stuck up against the wall. We talked to this guy. He's over at the Sunset Cafe. He says he didn't actually hit the wall, but he's about 3 inches from the wall, and there's nowhere he can go. He can't slide backwards because the other trucks are blocking him. And so basically, there is really no one who can get through here right now.
I didn't realize it was going to be, getting out to do the stories was going to be so challenging physically because, you know, just to get out to the highway, which was was about 100 yards from our hotel room, we had to go all the way around, and it took us about 30 minutes carrying all that equipment out there just to get out there. And once we were out there, you know, it wasn't a grand time, but I never felt physically in danger.
Making sure that people were already out there and were in place to do the job once the storm hit. And that's where the pre-planning really came into play, was that we had the people out there. And then when it really became a big deal, that's when we started calling even more people in.
How much do we have? How much more we can expect in the big situation? Yeah, the wind's blowing.
Well, we've had several reports of 5 to 8 inches.
Right, that's
correct?
a good average, the higher amounts in the mountains. And Bill and I got to get together on this, and it's a drier snow now, but still another 2, 3, 4 inches can't be ruled out. Most of the heavy stuff's going to quit before noon. The winds are going to get higher, and that's going to be a real problem. This is a superstorm.
It is unbelievable winds.
I've never seen a group of people come together and work so well together at one time. Our anchors were reacting to certain things, and it was just a totally different game than we're used to on a daily basis.
Now, the biggest trouble areas right now are in Red Bank, North Chattanooga, East Brainerd, Sale Creek, and Soddy Daisy. The Electric Power Board reports that of 135 power substations, 36 of them are now down, and it could take 2 to 3 days for crews to repair the substations. Now, an EPB spokesman says they have their hands full just trying to get through to the snow to the problem in the first place.
That has been a big problem for the last 36 hours. In fact, joining us now live from the EPB is Harold DePriest. Harold, can you give us an idea about the situation, what areas we can expect to be without power the longest?
Yes, Mike, I'm Steve Clark.
I'm sorry.
And that's
Our
fine.
apologies, Steve.
That's fine. The power that's out right now is still in the Soddy Daisy area, out in the Ooltewah and East Brainerd area. We still have several customers that are out in the Flintstone, Georgia, the south part of town. And in the Red Bank area, we've got a lot of those picked back up. A lot of the North Chattanooga area is picked back up. And there's still about 15 substations that are without power. The breakers are open, and there's no customers fed from those stations. And generally, they average about 1,000 customers per station. So we're looking at 15 to 20,000 customers still out.
Man, we were free falling. I mean, and that's the nice thing about, again, going back full circle to working with Don and working with Bob. There was no net. You never knew what was going to happen next. You didn't know what emergency would hit next. You never knew what somebody was going to say on the phone.
We have on the phone with us Lynn Nipper. Lynn is with the Bradley County, Tennessee 911 service. Good morning, Lynn. And we're experiencing a little problem.
You there?
Do we have Lynn?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
I'm fine.
Well, Lynn, tell us just how bad or what kind of help is available for folks in and around Bradley County.
Okay, presently we're pretty well socked in up here. All our records in our county are not running. They can't get out. Our patrol cars are having difficulty getting places. And our emergency ambulances, the snow drifts are too high for our ambulances.
Really?
So we're getting help from four-wheel drive clubs that have very high vehicles. And also we have requested help from the Army National Guard for the big trucks that we can transport medical patients and people who need help for heating.
Lynn, are you having a surprising large number of people who are needing medical attention here today?
Sir, I came on duty at 11 o'clock last night. We're still here. We can't get any relief in to relieve us.
We were going up Interstate 75, and it was 35 miles an hour was the fastest we could go. Most times it was 15 to 20 miles an hour. And the farther we went, the deeper the snow got. It took us probably an hour to drive to Cleveland, which would normally be a 20-minute drive, and it was an hour just because we had to dodge cars and drive so slow to be careful.
Well, problems for area motorists started piling up just as the storm reached its full fury, and Mother Nature turned a morning drive into a bumper car arena. Joining them were reporter John Pless and photographer Tom Ching, who hit the streets early this morning.
Headaches for Chattanooga police and motorists began early this morning, about the time when the heavy snow began accumulating. A driver traveling west on Macaulay lost control of his car. It careened into a 20-foot deep construction pit and flipped. He was treated for minor injuries. The drive out of town north turned treacherous, if not impossible at times. Wind-whipped snow reduced visibility and left a white blanket nearly a foot deep. That proved too much in Bradley County. Rescuers set up a command post. Their mission? To give a ride to work for emergency personnel.
We've got approximately 6 four-wheel drive vehicles out right now that are picking up only essential personnel, nursing personnel.
By daybreak, the storm's beauty was apparent, and so was its fury. Countless cars left behind by their drivers, automobiles stalled in drifts several feet deep. So as motorists gave up their cars and their travel plans, they tried to make the best of it at some of the area motels. Some had luck and some, well, they weren't so lucky.
So we're trying to get a hold of our parents. We lost our friends, so Heather, you guys are watching? We're safe. We're waiting for a room, basically.
It could take a day before Jessica finds a place to stay, but like most unexpected visitors, they're ready to go about their own way.
We were headed for Bradenton, Florida. We're on our spring break with the kids, and we thought we'd hit some sunshine to get away from all the snow that we have up north. But obviously we didn't get away from it.
So judging by what's in your hands, looks like you're in this hotel for the long haul, huh?
Well, I don't know. Hopefully tomorrow or Monday we can get out of here.
Perhaps, if the usual southern sunshine can melt away all that was left behind.
Even though you're the weatherman and you're supposed to be concerned with this, there's still the kid in me that had to go to the window and watch it snow and thunder and lightning all at the same time. I found that absolutely.
This was our way of telling the viewers it's serious out there, you know, and that really affected me, you know, having to sit and watch those people and know what they were going through out there. And how hard it was. That's the only way you can describe it, how hard it was for them, because it was painful, and there were times that you could see that pain in reporters' faces.
There she is, freezing to death today. Our Karen Drew. Karen, you're doing a super job. Thank you. How's it going now?
Well, it's still cold and it's still very, very windy. We're going to try to show you some of these drifts right now. We're standing here in front of the Smokehouse Lodge Hotel. If you can tell, this is just one of the drifts that's blocking in all these motorists, and this is not rare. This is how the whole parking lot looks. This is how the side of the roads look here on top of the mountain throughout the whole area. That's what motorists are having to try to battle, these big drifts and the blowing wind. Things aren't getting any better. Actually, they are getting worse. The temperature seems to be actually kind of dropping. Winds are picking up. Snow continues to fall. There doesn't seem to be an end in sight. Hopefully, things will be improving. But for the meanwhile, no road crews are working on the roads because of the terrible condition of the winds and the blizzard. And people seem just to be trying to stay indoors and trying to stay warm.
It appears, Karen, it appears from this vantage point or where you're standing that the The snow has let up just a little bit?
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Don?
I said it appears the snow has let up a little bit. Has it, or is that just deceiving to us?
I think that's deceiving to you. I don't think that's the case by any means. The snow is continuing to fall. If you can see through here, I mean, we've got everyone trying to battle. We've got this lady here trying to find out, I guess trying to get whatever she can out of her trunk, if she can try to get any of her belongings to try to stay the night. Most motorists are staying the night. You can see through the parking lot the wind is definitely blowing, the snow is falling. It doesn't seem like it's really letting up any to me, actually. The drifts are getting worse, if you can see in the parking lot. They continue to rise. There's a van over there that seems to be kind of stuck. So basically the winds are going, the snow is falling, and it really isn't improving.
Karen, what can you tell us about power line situations, you know, tree limbs down? Have you been able to see anything from your vantage point there?
No, I haven't been able to see anything right now. Where I am, everything at the hotel is fine. There was a little flash. People were worried that the power was going to go out, but as of now, in this particular area where I'm at, there doesn't seem to be any problems, but I'm not saying that there aren't any problems in the rural parts. But as of now, no news on the power outages.
We're going to ask you one or two quick more to let you get back inside. Number one, interstate is still closed, right?
Yes, that's the case. I talked to the Department of Transportation just a few minutes, about 20 minutes ago. They said they don't even have road crews working on the scene. So it's going to be a long time. And even once the storm does finally end, who knows how long it's going to take to dig out. So Interstate 24 is closed. Highway 56 is impassable. And all the secondary roads are obviously you can't get through.
Go back inside and warm up. We'll check with you later. Thank you very much. Our Karen Drew. Who's the photog that is with him? With her, if somebody can tell me.
Greg Johnson doing yeoman duty out there, because I mean, Greg has been giving us those live shots also you've seen.
But there were a lot of people stranded there. A lot of people on their way to Florida for spring vacation, and you know, spring breakers on their way to Florida, and they wouldn't get there anytime soon. And get into the Smokehouse Lodge was sort of like a step closer to Florida for them. At least they wasn't stuck out on the interstate in their car.
Again, officials are asking everybody to stay inside. Do not go outside if at all possible. The roads do promise to be treacherous, not only because they're slick, but because the winds are picking up. And as Neil mentioned, we're expecting hurricane force gales. And that means when you're out on the road and the winds will be blowing your car around, it will be difficult to take control of your vehicle, let alone on the slick roads. Now, of course, in the higher elevations, snow is expected to be much deeper than in the valley. And we're covered for that, too, because Karen Drew is on Mount Eagle Mountain tonight, and she joins us now live. Karen, how's life up there?
Well, it's definitely cold, Mary Ellen. The snowfall has definitely picked up, and the temperature is dropping. So as the storm system moves through, that's going to mean some bad news for motorists. The roads are expected to ice up. But right now, Interstate 24 is clear. There are no problems. And they started working early this afternoon when the snow first started falling, and since then, they've been working nonstop. Salt trucks are busy loading up and heading out. While the snow continues to fall on Mount Eagle, transportation workers are busy salting Interstate 24.
You just stay after it. Get after it early, stay with it.
Meek says standby crews are ready if the storm worsens, and if the temperature continues to drop and roads become icy, he may be forced to reduce travel to one lane each way on the interstate. But for now, roads remain clear. Meanwhile, people here on Mount Eagle don't seem to be worried. People at Lockhart's Family Restaurant seemed more concerned with their dinner than the approaching storm and didn't understand what all the fuss was about.
I'm just used to this. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid to be out in it. Only time I'm scared of when it gets icy.
I just got out, got off work, and we always come up here on Friday. Neat. No reason to change now.
Are you stockpiling anything, or is this kind of just a regular?
I have granola bars and a full tank of gas. That's about it.
The winds, it was terrible, and plus, it just was being outside the whole time, trying to do the coverage, trying to get all the interviews and talking to the people, and just being outside for such a long period of time. Smart enough to go indoors, but I haven't seen it. That's what made it tough. The winds on top of the mountain are just unbelievable.
But I think that we did cover it. I think we were here for people to vent their emotions on the phone as we were taking the call-ins and things like that. Albert, I think people at that time just needed someone to talk to.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but
be careful. Don't let the dog out.
Now let's check with Paul Marler. Paul Marler's in Tracy City. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Don. Am I on there?
Yes, sir, you are. How's it going?
You rascal, you hadn't got to talk to you in 10 years or so.
I know, and we have to do it on the air. How much snow you got on Mount Eagle?
I'm going to say an average of 12 inches out on the flats. I've got drifts of 3 feet or over between my front porch and my pickup truck. Nothing is moving.
Matter of fact, those of you at home right now, the pictures you are seeing are live from Monteagle Mountain right now. Go ahead, Paul.
The main highway from Tracy City to Monteagle is blocked in several places. It is shut down. I believe your reporter told that earlier.
Yeah.
They're advising no one to move. Even the police vehicles are stranded with traffic in front and behind them. They can't get back to the station.
Paul, I understand there's also been quite a few truck accidents there on the mountain as well on the interstate.
The dispatcher in Monteagle has informed me coming up the mountain, that would be westbound towards Nashville, is blocked completely. There is no traffic going across Monteagle Mountain.
People just need to stay home, don't you, Paul?
Yes, sir. It is very hazardous up here. I'm clocking winds up to 43 miles an hour on my anemometer.
Good grief.
Sounds about right, Paul. Thank you.
Paul, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Yes, sir.
And now we go to WREA Radio in Dayton. And who do I have on the line here?
This is Melinda Paradise, the station manager.
Well, Melinda, how are you this morning?
I'm doing just wonderful. How are you doing?
We got the boss.
You mean the boss had to get up and come in this morning?
I spent the night last night.
Boy, you're a party animal.
I sure am. The wind is really high here. We have about 7 inches of snow currently, and the wind is gusting, and we have a lot of snow on our roads.
Melinda, do you have any reports of power outages in and around Dayton or Ray County?
The power is going off and on at different times, but right now it's on.
When people called and told you that they had a child that was on oxygen, had 15 minutes left on the bottle, and they'd call 911 and they couldn't help. Things like that, and that happens quite a bit. And I could do nothing. I couldn't call anybody.
Hey,
Because
I
they
need
had
you to
already
go
called
over to
911.
Point and Terry.
In Friday's Hero, we pay tribute to all of the men and women who made a difference during the havoc of Superstorm 93.
There's no way to mention all the kind or heroic acts witnessed during the long, cold days of the storm of the century. Emergency workers from all over did an outstanding job around the clock. But they couldn't do it alone, and the people of the Tennessee Valley refused to let each other down.
We're blessed with people that help people and that care about people, and it's rewarding. And we worked real hard and didn't sleep hardly any at all, but when you see things like that, it's all worthwhile to see the people come together.
Whether trudging through knee-deep snow on foot or reaching impassable areas in four-wheel drive, they all lent a helping hand. There were daring rescues, but just as important were the food and fuel runs for stranded neighbors.
Well, maybe someday somebody will do something for me like this. You know, I help them today, they'll help me tomorrow.
And let's not forget the hundreds of volunteers who manned local shelters, helping to feed strangers who had nowhere else to go. Nowhere to go was also a problem for travelers stranded on I-75, but their guardian angel, Ernestine Hurd, lowered buckets of food and drink from an East Ridge overpass.
I hope so, because everybody's been pulling together through this storm, and that's what's most important, is helping each other out.
Some of the rescues we watched through the eyes of photographers. Other stories came from viewers who called to share their stories with us. None of them more extraordinary than Elsie Owenby's.
Miss Owenby? Hey. Hi there. How are you?
Paramedics Richard Tanner and Bill Reed and RN Al Sarin were among those who took part in saving Mrs. Owenby's life. It was a rescue attempt that involved 2 wrecked and stranded ambulances and 1 stranded rescue vehicle, but all arrived on foot after as long as a 3-mile hike through waist-high snowdrifts, dragging equipment in hand. Over a course of 8 hours, this heart attack victim clinically died 3 times, but was resuscitated. Finally, she was transported safely to Humana East Ridge Hospital.
Everybody has a guardian angel, and I feel like all of these is mine because they saved my life.
Here are some of the stories you called in to tell us about, all of them in honor of the thousands of heroic acts displayed during the blizzard of '93.
My special hero is Guy Broom. He took kerosene to elderly people, and the ones that didn't have a kerosene heater, he took them out and put them in homes that did have heat, and he took food to a lot of people.
I would like to nominate Mark Hutchings. He had to come out in the blizzard Saturday and had picked up my family and I. We were without heat.
I'd like to thank the Sunset Cafe staff for the job well done. They were there 5 days and 5 nights, and I ate there personally as I was stuck on the freeway.
My brother, Mark Lindsay, and even though he didn't have any heat or power or anything, he's volunteered to take nurses back and forth to Erlanger, Ben Stone. He came down yesterday with a tractor and a scraper and cleaned my driveway off with several others, and I didn't even know the man.
William Pickett of Whitwell, Tennessee, suffered a heart attack Saturday morning,
Ambulance attendants couldn't reach him. The surrounding community are all pitched in with four-wheel drive and other help. They all put aside their own needs and concentrated on him. With their help, we got him to the hospital. We lost a great man that day, but these that helped are truly heroes.
To these people and the many others out there who reached out to their neighbors, we at News Channel 9 salute you as this week's Friday's Heroes.
There were so many acts of human kindness we don't get to see on a day-to-day basis, particularly in news.
For Howard High School junior Lamel Johnson, a little wet weather meant a lot of extra tips.
They tipping good, especially people off the mountain. They coming in, they saying how you doing, you know, we saying hello. So they bring in money, tip well, you know.
They figure they're gonna be stuck, so they might as well be generous with you?
Yeah, I guess so, but some nights it ain't too good, but the night's been pretty good.
Inside the Broad Street Red Food, shoppers loaded up with supplies and dispensed a little advice on how to get by in the snow.
That's the only thing God promised us, bread and water. He didn't promise anything else, so you can survive.
Of course, Essie didn't mention the ice cream and potato chips in her cart. But with dinner in hand and a four-wheel drive vehicle outside, this Lookout Mountaineer wasn't worried about the white stuff.
This is not gonna put any damper in your lifestyle.
No, actually, it's gonna invigorate it quite a bit. You know, snow, sledding and skiing, that sort of thing. Out on the golf course tonight, probably, till 2 or 3 in the morning.
If popping a tape in the VCR's about all you're up to, then Video USA had the snow special for you. Pamela Moore says she may be stranded, but she isn't gonna be bored. Down the street at Mr. T's, the calls were coming in as the pizzas piled up. This restaurant has a monopoly on snow-stranded pizza lovers tonight. They're the only pizza delivery place with the four-wheel drive ready and the crews willing to brave the mountain roads.
A lot of people are sledding up there right now, but yeah, we pretty much had the market up there.
You know, you had a job to do, you had to get the story, but at the same time, your body told you, get out of this, get back in the truck, there's heat in the truck.
Black ice will be a problem for everybody, not only tonight, but tomorrow morning.
So really, the information that we're giving you could be
life-saving.
Three hours from now. It may not matter that these roads are open if they're wet and icy, because there's no way the road crews can get to everything.
Oh, that's right. What's happening is, as the sun sets, the temperature will begin plummeting, and it's just right around freezing now. So these roads that absorb heat and got warm during the day will take that snow, which has been melting and running little puddles of water onto it, and they'll begin to refreeze. So in many places there will be a glaze of ice, not necessarily the big main roads, but a lot of these others that appear to be quite passable. So this is going to be very icy again in the morning, where the snow softened up is going to become a real slick glaze. So we'll have problems in the morning again, no doubt. Let's go now to a satellite picture that kind of shows you where the snow is on the ground, because it's sunny out there, and you're looking at snow cover all the way down into Alabama, North Georgia, and across East Tennessee. Remember, Nashville and Memphis didn't get much from this. Some of this is high cloudiness up here, but tomorrow we'll see a large additional melt of snow, because I'm predicting that temperatures will reach the 40s then. The snow totals measured by weather watchers, very tough, real high winds accounting for big snow drifts. The thinking is in the water equivalent, which is just 1 inch of rain, may have ended up 10, 12 inches of snow, which is still near a real record for us, and certainly totals that we may not see again for years to come. It's interesting, though, that we go back 5 years, we had that big 10-inch total, a 60-year record. Here we are with mild winters lately and getting occasionally these giant snows.
Everybody is literally scrambling because information is coming from all sides. Either information is coming from all sides or questions are coming from all sides. More questions than answers usually.
Live coverage continues here on News Channel 9 of Superstorm 1993. We've got some information that we want to pass along to you folks, help in outlying areas.
This is probably the second worst storm that has affected a city that I've seen, both growing up in North Dakota and working in South Dakota. This is by far the second worst storm I've ever seen.
Night crept in with flurries and frigid temperatures, but thanks to the help of some four-wheeling volunteers, dozens of freezing Chattanoogans found shelter at the Hamilton County Trade Center.
But you can ask one of the ladies who's got a security thing on.
Families like the Riders, whose St. Elmo home lost electrical power early this morning.
It wasn't so bad to start with because, you know, the house retained some heat, but we knew that we couldn't stay there any length of time with a 6-month-old baby and smaller, small girls.
Most of those overnighting here say this wasn't really part of the plan.
We were ready for everything except the power going out. We had food. All the food needed to be cooked. Without juice, we couldn't do anything.
Instead of cooked dinners, the hungry got the next best thing. MREs, prepackaged military meals donated by the local National Guard. Colonel Jim Darling says his soldiers have been hitting the road in Humvees all day, trying to help out stranded storm victims.
It had to be a real emergency before we've taken the call, really, because there's just too many people out there with too many problems, and so we've dealt with the real problems.
The Stevenson kids had no real problems working up an appetite, but mastering their first MREs was another story.
I got some omelet with ham, and I've got some beverages, and I've got some crackers. That's about all, and you can't cook it hot.
How do you feel about dinner in a plastic bag?
Well, it's unusual.
It really was a time for heroes. Mel showed you some. We had a lot of folks behind the scenes, but you folks out there were heroes also. Those of you who endured during the crisis, those of you who didn't panic and just kept your heads, and we thank you for that. We were glad that we were able to bring you the latest information as we got it, and we thank you for sharing your time with us.
It was a nightmare. There were millions of phone calls, it seemed like, when there was really probably about 500, and the phones rang off the walls.
And as the weekend went on, people's nerves started getting a little frazzled.
Cameron Hill would have been great to sled down. I didn't get to go play in it at all.
People relying on me to find out what roads were closed because we were just continuously putting that on the air.
On the way, we stopped and helped 15, 20 different people.
So we just went in the studio and opened the big garage door. And the anchors sat here in sweaters, and the camera people put scarves on, and the kids ran out the garage door and just played in the snow, and we just shot right out in the snow. It was sort of neat.
Once I got to work, I had to become informed, just like that. I had to know where everything was happening and what the status was of everything.
We had daffodils, we had everything.
A very classic low pressure system. It winds up and moves off to the north and to the east, keeping us in the bands of snow. If you live down into North Georgia, that's where you're going to see the highest amount.
Strong winds are going to start late this afternoon. About 4 o'clock, the snow will begin to get heavy.
You know, forecasting a storm like this, it took a lot of guts. You know, we were going out on a limb as early as Wednesday calling for 6 and 8 inches of snow, and for Chattanooga, that is unheard of.
It was almost hard for us to believe what we were saying. At the same time we were telling you, we tried to believe what the forecast models and the maps were telling us, but it was hard for us to believe, and we never imagined that we were going to have that much snowfall.
I hope that the bad part doesn't start until everyone has an opportunity to get home from their jobs and maybe go by the store and get some groceries.
They're buying up everything.
And if I get snowed in for 3 days, I have 2 children who don't have enough junk food.
But she's taking care of that problem.
5 bottles of Coke, 4 bags of potato chips, Little Debbie's, chocolate chip cookies if we get snowed in for something to do, cinnamon rolls for breakfast.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful.
We're going to be a snowman, and I could wonder if me and Dad could have a snow fight.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
They're for my little boy and my little girl to play in tomorrow and Saturday.
Until the first flakes fell and really started accumulating, we were really tense, and after that, the pressure started easing up a bit.
The roads are a bad place to be on. A lot of slickness, especially on the exit ramps. People are finally starting to slow down, and traveling is going to be very treacherous, especially along the ridge cut and the higher elevations for the next few hours. That'll continue throughout much of the day tomorrow, but while traveling is treacherous, here at the Sunset Cafe, people are having fun with an old-fashioned snowball fight, and I think I'm going to lose this one because it's 3-on-1, but everybody is having a good time. A good old-fashioned March snowstorm here in the Tennessee Valley. Really, it doesn't get much better than this, does it?
Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama are all under a state of emergency because of the storm.
I want to give you a shot of just what I-75 looks like. I know people have been imploring you all day long to stay off the roads. Folks, this should convince you. It is one big parking lot. No matter where you want to go, you can't get there from here. On I-75, even the brave abandon their cars. The roads are obstacle courses. Drivers rumbling over snow and dodging cars left sitting smack in the middle of the road. Instead of clearing the snow, plows themselves got stuck in it. These are the only 2 working all of Cleveland.
Cover the track right behind us.
So as soon as you get it clear, snow's right on top of it again. Yep. The 5 salt trucks also stall. As Steve Rogers dumps salt, his mind is elsewhere, on his wife, who's 9 months pregnant.
I call her about every 2 hours. Check on her. She's not too far from me.
She could go into labor any minute. Anytime. It's been lights out for 80% of Bradley County. At the Holiday Inn, 150 stranded travelers bundle up. And it seems bad times are also made from Michelob. A 6-pack washed away Troy Cataret's hopes for a vacation in snow-free Florida.
And it is still snowing, but the winds have picked up to 40 and 50 miles per hour, and that is becoming a real problem.
Spinning tires on cars stuck in the snow was an all too familiar sight on the roads. It seems Mother Nature got the best of the Tennessee Valley this weekend.
Traveling on the roads has been pretty tough all day. Early in the morning, several inches of snow covered the highways, and as the day went on, it got packed down into a thin sheet of slickness, making many motorists wish they'd have never hit the roads in the first place.
People just shouldn't be on the roads. We were just coming home and had to get home, and they said stay off the road. We didn't. So maybe people will.
Icy roads stranded many travelers for hours, and for those who were lucky enough not to get stuck, it was slow going. Even the police had a hard time handling the slick pavement. Officer William Neblett had to be rescued by a tow truck twice.
Situations, sometimes there just isn't much you can do. They say it just depends on how stuck they are or what the problem is, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do. Because, you know, Chattanooga's not equipped for this kind of snow.
Equipped or not, quite a few folks played Good Samaritans and stopped to help others get out of the ditches.
Someone did us a favor this morning by pulling us out, so we in turn have been doing good deeds. We've been helping people get their cars out.
The snow may have stopped, but authorities say no one should be out driving unless they absolutely have to be. Stay home and try to stay warm.
They gonna send a line truck? Go see it.
What you see behind me are vehicles that are abandoned on I-24. All those drivers have gone and taken shelter here in East Ridge.
Interstate 75 will be closed the remainder of the night. If you need assistance, please exit your vehicle.
Who says there's no rest for the weary? An Army National Guard caravan rounded up these stranded travelers and took them to shelter.
Good spring break.
Yeah. No, bundling up in blankets is probably a far cry from basking in the Florida sunshine like these 300 spring breakers expected. Just ask college freshman Dan Wunderlich.
This is my first, and it's, I guess I can't curse on the news.
That sums it up, though.
Yeah.
This is the vacation from hell.
We are going to get dumped on around here. I mean, something you haven't seen in a few years.
The snow started falling late Friday night, and by Saturday morning, the city was covered with nearly 2 feet of snow in some places, 18.5 inches of that falling in just one day. Both Interstates 24 and 75 were shut down, stranding motorists.
Terrible. I've never seen anything like it. This night we spent in the parking lot at Burger King.
The heavy weight of the snow collapsed the roof of the old Sam's Club and at Carpet Outlet in Dalton.
We've got all of our crews out working in several areas. We are, I guess, appalled at what we're finding.
72,000 EPB customers lost power. Crews worked nonstop for 8 days before getting all power restored.
There we are.
There are the lights.
Oh, good.
The storm of 93 is EPB's third most expensive storm in company history. The second highest one-day snowfall in Chattanooga was on December 4th, 1886, when 12 inches blanketed the city. Coming in at number 3, January 7th, 1988, when 10 inches of snow fell in Chattanooga. At the time, it was the most snow seen in Chattanooga in more than 75 years. It started falling overnight, and by morning, many roads were impassable. Cars skidded off the interstate and slid into the median wall. Police ended up stopping traffic at the bottom of the ridge cut, while crews worked to clear snow from the roadway. And many of you remember a big snow just 2 years ago. Nearly 8.5 inches fell between midnight and sunrise, January 10th, 2011. That snow comes in at number 10 on the list of highest one-day snowfalls in Chattanooga.
Our county had no four-wheel drive vehicles. We didn't have nearly enough road equipment to clear the roads.
A number of the single axle trucks that we had just had what we call the tailgate spreaders on the back, which had to be hand-fed.
Chattanooga and Hamilton County had never seen a snow the magnitude of the storm of 93, and even though many had their doubts the Tennessee Valley would ever experience a blizzard, city and county leaders paid attention.
No one really thought it was going to happen even during that day. It was still kind of everybody's waiting to see what was going to happen.
This happened Friday night, so we were probably by Wednesday, we were pretty clued in that this is going to be some bad stuff.
It didn't take long for the snow accumulations to pile up.
It began to fall at a tremendous rate.
By the next day, it just had broken loose, and it was a blizzard. I mean, we had 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it had snow drifts 5 and 6 feet high.
The snow came so fast and so heavy, city workers couldn't keep up.
It was at a rate that as quick as we were putting the salt and sand down, it was being covered with the snow, so we just kind of had to call a halt to the operations and let the snow finish and then try the snow removal.
Interstate 75 and the Ridge Cut were shut down, stranding motorists for more than a day. An emergency shelter was set up at the Trade Center for a couple of thousand people. and rescue crews had trouble reaching those who needed help all across the Tennessee Valley.
They had to walk 3 miles in almost knee-to-waist deep snow.
20 years later, emergency crews would still face many of the challenges if another big storm hit the area, but they're much better prepared. The city has new mechanized trucks that will spread brine and salt instead of using manual labor to clear roads.
With that and with the plans that we have for our primary routes and secondary routes that we have in place now, it just makes it a whole lot easier.
But we got out of this thing a new EOC. We got 4-wheel drive vehicles for the future. We got a state-of-the-art equipment.
It's the first time in the history of Chattanooga that there were blizzard warnings.
It was just the perfect storm for Chattanooga. It hit us, and it hit us hard.
I thought I had seen the biggest snow I would ever see 5 years before that, January of '88.
We are going to get dumped on around here.
But he said, we're going to get 20 inches of snow on Saturday. And again, you know, it's Tuesday, it's sunny, it's 75. I looked at him and said, you're not going to say that out loud, are you? Because people will think you're crazy.
We knew Paul was very serious about it, and yet he was talking about something that we had never seen probably in our lifetime.
The '93 storm, I remember feeling a lot of pressure because I hadn't been here that long. And I was going to say something that had never been said in Chattanooga television history.
And he says, no, I mean, if all this holds true, we'll get 20 inches of snow on Saturday. And 5 days later, boom, there it was. I got to say that we did have a laugh or two after the event because Paul had been proven right.
Bill Markham was here, and Bill wanted to do the show outside. But wouldn't you know it, right during the 11 o'clock show, big snowflakes start coming down. They're landing on the shoulders of the anchors.
Even on a fence, the snow was stacked up as far as it could go, and then of course it had fallen over because it was 20+ inches of snow in the backyard.
6 o'clock in the morning or so, we're crossing the El Jadi Bridge. We were in our news director's 4-wheel drive, and there was nobody on the road. I looked outside, and I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and that was my first blizzard was then. I looked outside and I said, this is like Chicago. It looked exactly like Chicago. I mean, just the winds howling, everything's a whiteout.
You could not see the road. You couldn't see anything that resembled a road, no stripes, nothing. I came trudging up the hill on the side of the station. The blizzard was still blowing at us, and it was pretty fierce. It was 12 hours into the storm, and it was still roaring like that.
What none of us expected was it would be a total whiteout, which I'd always heard of but had never seen.
David was in the studio taking phone calls, helping people get medicine, getting help in different ways. We just opened up the live lines to help people.
A registered nurse has a full bottle of insulin. If someone will come and get it in the 4-wheel vehicle.
And we were doing what you would consider now talk radio on TV.
There was no Facebook, there was no email. And so we provided that lifeline for people. And it was just one call after another from people saying, you know, we need a generator. You know, my mom's on a breathing machine of some sort. We need a trip to the pharmacy. We need a trip to the doctor. My wife's about to have a baby. I mean, you know, any and every kind of medical emergency was out there.
I remember realizing that there were people out there that were really in trouble. There were so many different instances where what we did on the air that morning was helping save lives.
She's low on insulin. Her only other supply is at home in North Chattanooga. Now, if there's anyone who can help her. We were able to link together some people that day and that week who were without power, without transportation for sometimes days at a time. And that gave us a good feeling about being able to provide a service that nobody else could do.
I think the images are what plays back in my mind. The image of the interstate there at the Ridge Cut and it just being nothing but snow, covered in snow. Trucks stopped in their tracks and all the vehicles that were there just parked because they couldn't go any farther.
I think of all the tree cutters and the power line workers and the emergency workers who had no choice but to go to work.
And they call that the storm of the century. That was the ultimate storm, as far as snowstorms go, that I think we'll probably ever see, hopefully. I don't want to go through another one like that.
While it was going on, we sat there and said, this is a once in a lifetime. And, you know, when we're old and gray, as I've become, you know, we'll be thinking back and reminiscing about the storm of '93. And that's proven to be true.
My parents lived in St. Louis at the time, and calling them and saying we had 23 inches of snow on our front yard we measured it, of course, with a yardstick, and they couldn't even believe it because that just doesn't happen here. And of course, it hasn't happened since then.
That's something that we'll be talking about for the rest of our lives.
But it could happen. It's not impossible. Mother Nature can do some very strange things, as we saw on April 27th a couple of years ago. You know, I've learned to say, never say never.
This is about, what, 4:30 in the morning. What's today's date? March 14th, 13th, 1993. And it's awful cold out here. Archival snow footage for the station to use whenever they damn well feel like it. Forget the profanity, but it's cold out here! Those of you that live here. Power. Silhouette. There you go, right there. Okay.
This is for everybody that stayed home and didn't come out and play in the snow with us at 4 o'clock in the morning. Thank you. Thank you.
This is John's car after coming in from Side Daisy moment of the night. As you can tell, it's covered with a little bit of snow here, just a tad. We used to have a curb here somewhere. We don't know where it is anymore.
There were footprints where we walked out.
Yeah, there were footprints here about 5 minutes ago when we walked out here in the snow. They'd be gone. And for those people that don't know what this is called, it's called a blizzard.
Andy Hall, Patrick Core, stand by for a weather guard. We may need you. We're having trouble with the live shot. Andy and Patrick, head to the weather guard.
Go back into the archives, huh?
Yeah, this weather today looks a lot better than what we're about to show you. This week, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of the biggest snowstorm we've ever seen in our area. The official snow total was 20 inches at the airport, but some areas saw even more snow. All this week, we'll look back at the blizzard of '93 with video from our archives.
You know what just an inch of snow does to drivers in our area right now? Can you imagine what 20 inches would do? Well, let's take a look.
Still not a terrific situation out there, but I-75 is open in both directions, and in some cases traffic is moving slowly.
We understand it's backed up from the Ridge Cut all the way to exit 2A on I-75, over 5 miles of backup.
This is the best view of what interstates look like after the snowstorm. It was bumper to bumper from the Ridge Cut to I-75. Despite the delays, many motorists say with so many accidents on the roadway, the smart thing to do was to wait for better conditions.
Till it's right, they know he's turning people loose.
Some of these drivers were stuck here since Saturday morning. The interstate reopened at about 2 this afternoon. Traffic is moving slow even now. But who's complaining?
693, 693.
The messy, tedious task of cleaning up after the worst snowfall Cleveland has ever experienced has begun. When James Key's car slid into the ditch, he walked home, knowing he could come for it later. He obviously wasn't alone.
It just took them maybe an hour or so to get here. They said they had 25 ahead of me, so it wasn't bad.
Wow, what an event that was. And all this week, we're bringing back some of the people who reported on the storm. Like that was Lewis Lee, the last person there. And we're starting out, though, with our very own Luther.
Of course, he was much younger then, just over 70, but he still drove himself into work for the biggest snowfall of his life.
I've come in to work many times over the years during snow, but this was a humdinger, let me tell you. The way it was coming down, the way it was blowing sideways from, let's see, from south to north, or north to south, just like this, you know, and it piled up pretty fast. It was quite a snowstorm. But what I want to ask you guys, all of you fellows in the news visit, whatever happened to chains? I watched all of that network news, Chicago, New York, Boston, and nobody ever mentioned, not a one mention of chains. And that would have saved a lot of people a lot of headaches and pain and expense.
So you had chains on your truck?
I haven't this year, of course, but in the past I have put chains on. In fact, I'll tell you a quick experience. I went out to the Parker service station one night because the snow had been predicted that night, starting at midnight. So just to be sure, I went out, had him put chains on. I drove back home, backed into the carport so I can get out easy, and got up the next morning, not a sign of snow. It didn't arrive that time. This was several years ago. So I got in my truck and I said, I'm not going to take those chains off this time in the morning. So I drove to work, and people who happened to see me going to work said, boy, you were making the sparks fly as you drove down the streets of Chattanooga getting to work that morning. But yes, I don't know what happened to chains. I want to know. Somebody tell me. You know, coming to work, if you come to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30, you are out when nobody else is out, and you make the tracks. If you come in later, you're behind somebody, and they're spinning and everything. You're delayed. You're all by yourself early in the morning, and you make it to work all right, really, even when it's snowing and sleeting and all the bad things. You couldn't get in the supermarkets. They were just, I mean, packed with, I want a loaf of bread. And of course, at the time, I think Colonial Bakery was around here, but you could see the bread trucks running in all directions. And they were trying to supply the supermarkets with enough bread to get you through this snowstorm that was coming in. It was a good thing. We had good coverage of it too on radio and TV.
That's why people flock to the stores to get milk and bread when Luther says it's going to snow. That's why, guys. We've got more video from the storm for you in a 30-minute special. Patrick Hoare and Chip Chapman weathered the storm 20 years ago, and they'll take you back with our coverage from the News 12 archives. We're calling it the Blizzard of 93, 20 years later. It's tomorrow night at 7:30, right after Prime News at 7, so check that out tomorrow night.
And we're going back to the Blizzard of 93 when we come back. Stay with us.